as a phenomenon is affecting a significant number of children and adolescents in the southern African, context or, corridor, which covers Mozambique, South Africa, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. While migration is not a new phenomenon in the region, the shifting of demographic trends, continue to pose a challenge for government. As we are here, we are representing government, so the migration at times, poses, challenges, to government in terms of rendering services, to children. Child migration in the region is largely, driven by poor economic, situations in neighboring countries. The economic circumstances of countries such as South Africa and Botswana in a region rife with poverty attracts many, of such, children due to opportunities that they think that they will be, engaging when they come here. The current political and economical and social reality is one in which there is a significant number of children arriving in South Africa, thus creating a need for adequate and coordinated approach for the reception thereof, care and protection and assistance that would be based on the best interests, of the children. Programs to protect unaccompanied migrant children have been gradually implemented by the state. Providing protection for this kind of children is not easy, as most children travel secretly and cross borders irregularly, thus making it difficult for them to report abuses if they are being subjected to them. The nature of child migration means a considerable number of children remain invisible and go undetected by the child care and protection system despite their high vulnerability. The state has, on intersectorally nature, effected to assist these kids or these children, as no one department can manage and can take responsibility. Concerted efforts by government are displayed, where each department takes its responsibility towards their mandate by rendering services to these children in question. Furthermore, it must be noted that even though social development as a lead department in care and protection of children and the child protection organizations under which designation, the organizations are being, designated, they cannot manage to resolve the challenge that they face by the said group of children alone. The concerted effort is needed to collaborate and integrate with other stakeholders such as government departments, local NGOs, international organizations working in the field of migration effectively to respond to the plight of these children. The important role played by the following governments is noted: Department of Home Affairs, Department of Police Services, Department of Basic Education, Department of Health, Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, Department of Labor, and Department of International Relations and Cooperations, being DERCO, is very important, and that cannot be underestimated. because they need to work closely with each other, collaborate with each other in terms of the rendering of these services. Various government departments are involved insofar as the protection of unaccompanied and separated migrant children is concerned. As you will be hearing from the panelists who are here, who will be sharing, their mandate from their respective departments. The child protection measures are provided in what we call, Children's Act 38 of 2005. It has regulations as well as applicable forms which need to be dealt with and applied when dealing with children. To clarify and set the scene, the children in question we are talking about, in simpler terms, we need to understand and contextualize this. Firstly, I will talk about unseparated separated children. These children are those who are separated from both parents or from their previous legal and customary caregivers. So we need to clarify and be, of the knowledge of who are we talking about. Secondly, unaccompanied children, the so-called unaccompanied minors, are the children who have been separated from both parents and other relatives and are not being cared for by an adult who by law and custom is responsible to take care of them. We have a team of panelists here in front from various government departments and also key stakeholders and partners who will be making presentations on how their respective departments and their organizations are committed in providing services to unaccompanied and migrant children. We have the following panelists. The first one is Mr. Unaccompanied. He is by my far right. He is the Chief Education Specialist from Department of Basic Education. The section that he is working in is Education Management and Governance Development. Secondly, we have Ms. Lilian Tobejani. She is a Social Work Manager by International Social Services Unit by the National Department of Social Development. Furthermore, we also have Ms. Tebogo Pokanoka from the Directorate Center Law Enforcement by the Department of Home Affairs. And we also have Ms. Helen Nyangoya. She's a Child Protection Manager from Unicef South Africa. She is also, part of the panelists who will be engaging with you. The fifth one is Nika Machenjese. He is from Save the Children South Africa. He is responsible, he's a manager responsible for migration and displacement of children and in emergency situations. Ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to welcome and open, the session so that we can get, a base of what we are going to talk about. In terms of our program, the first presentation will be by Mr. Unaccompanied from Department of Basic Education. Thank you, sir. The stage is yours. You can come through.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Dr. Mabe. I will take off the mask for purposes of my voice not being hindered by the mask. The services that are offered to migrant undocumented children in South African schools are the same as those offered for any other child that is admitted into the schooling system in South Africa. But now, for a child to receive these services, a child must first be admitted into a schooling system. That is why my presentation will talk a little bit to the admission conditions and how children are admitted into a school. Around December 2019, there was a school in the Eastern Cape that was taken to court, and the High Court decided, and the judgment of that High Court set the tone for the appetite of courts on learners' right to basic education throughout the country. It's important for us just to look at aspects of that Phakamisa judgment, because they will then indicate and show the steps that basic education is taking to ensure that all children, particularly these ones that you're talking to today, find space into the education system. It is good then to give a legislative background to this matter of education. Section 29 of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa does provide for a right to basic education to everyone, even including adult basic education. To realize this constitutional imperative, the South African Schools Act in Section 5 indicates that a public school must admit all children and serve their educational requirements without unfairly discriminating in any way against any particular child. The admission policy that deals with giving a framework on how provinces can regulate admission into schools was first published on the 19th of October in 1998. And since then, it has never had an opportunity for it to be amended. But because of developments that are taking place and the new legislation that is being put into place, there was a need for us to align the admission policy with all relevant laws that are there currently. So we will look at some aspects of this admission policy in order to understand what is it that basic education is doing to accommodate our migrant children. One of the requirements in this admission policy is for a learner to produce, or a parent of a learner to produce, an official birth certificate as they apply for admission. This posed a challenge on the administration of learners at school level. The challenge that was posed regarding this requirement to produce identification was that learners were unable to produce this birth certificate on a variety of reasons. When you look at undocumented and migrant children, one of the reasons that they were not able to produce this, and they are still not able to produce this identity document, it's because when they came into South Africa, they might have left their countries in a state that was not very good. So they lost all their possessions and they don't have anything to can produce. Some of them, as Dr. Mabi indicated earlier on, they left their countries and came into South Africa without being accompanied. So they would not be in a position to produce these documents, and we can't trace their parents at the point when they want to be admitted into schools. But then some of these children are abandoned for various reasons. The example, which is not a very nice thing that might have happened to the mother, is that some of the mothers might have conceived this child and gave birth to him as a result of rape. So these mothers are not prepared to come forward and indicate that who's the father of the child, or even themselves that they are mothers. And for these reasons, these are not reasons that can really make, our view now is that these are not reasons that can really make a child lose out on being educated and not be able to realize that right to basic education. There are initial steps that the department took. And I want to explain, when I say initial steps, is because we have changed and reviewed at how we address the situation, and there are new things that you are doing. The first initial step that we took was that we consulted and sought legal advice. Some provinces dealt with the matter in different manners. The case in hand, which I want to refer to later on, the Phakamisa case in the Eastern Cape. The Eastern Cape issued a circular. Circulars are those documents that would give directive, particularly to principals, on what to do on a particular matter. This circular was dealing with the admission of learners that if they don't have identity documents, then there are some services that they will not be able to receive, or the school will not be able to present those to the provincial department as learners that are recognized to be learners in the system. Justification for such steps was that departments were trying to improve the administration within their schools, and the other was to try and manage and reduce the challenge of unidentified learners. Can I then talk to a few matters that the Phakamisa judgment brought up? I won't talk to all of them, but the ones that I think would be relevant for this session. The Phakamisa judgment, I'll just mention 5 of these things that the judgment talked to. The judgment said clause number 15 and 21 of the national admission policy were inconsistent with the constitution and therefore was declared invalid. That's the first point. So we had to go and relook. You know, when a judgment comes out, it then becomes case law, and we have to accommodate that. The second thing was that circular that I referred to, Circular 6 of 2016 of the Eastern Cape, was also declared to be invalid and was therefore set aside. So that circular can no longer be employed by the Eastern Cape Provincial Education Department. The third thing was that the Department of Education and its 9 provinces were directed to admit all children that are not in possession of official birth certificates. But the alternative should be looked into that can identify these children, which would be an affidavit or a sworn statement. Then from Home Affairs, I'm glad that Tebogo is here. The Immigration Act, Section 39 and 42, were viewed to be sections that are also making it difficult for school principals to admit learners into schools. But the court made it clear that those 2 sections do not prohibit the provision of basic education to children that are undocumented and are migrant. And this assisted because some principals were scared to admit learners in the sense that they say they would have committed a criminal act. The Minister of Basic Education, together with MECs, were requested to refrain from removing or excluding learners that do not have documentation. So based on that background that we've given, the department then started moving forward. In moving forward, what did we do? We then had an understanding that the judgment set the tone for the appetite of court in regarding this matter of undocumented learners. So we had to act accordingly. The first thing that we did was we took a decision to review the admission policy. But whilst the reviewing of the admission policy is in process, there had to be something that is done. Then we issued Circular 1 of 2020. And this circular was giving guidance to schools that learners must be admitted even if they don't have the identity documents. Then 2 things must happen. A sworn statement or an affidavit should be accepted as alternatives. And secondly, these learners that don't have documents must be assisted to get documents, either with communication of the Department of Home Affairs or communication with their different consulates that are in the Republic. Then these amendments that were being proposed on the admission policy were publicized on the 10th of February in 2021. I think it would be good for us just to share some of the items that we think should be amended. Clause 15 of the admission policy as it stands is then proposed to be amended to include a written affirmation or a sworn written statement so that a learner can be identified. I think you'll notice that at this point I've mentioned that item close to about 4 times because that's how important it is that alternative documentation should be accepted. But if the parent fails to submit the birth certificate, the school through the head of department should then, that's the other service that we offer, should then assist these children to get documented and working together with Department of Home Affairs. I must indicate that some provinces really did come to the party. Like I was in Zastron in the Free State this past week. Schools are actually taking it an extra mile and have assisted children to get documented. In the case of abandoned or orphaned children, schools have been requested to accept a court order. And this court order would be sought from the Department of Social Development. And this court order would serve as a document that indicates and identifies the child. And then coming to clause 23, I'll say it slowly because it's very important. It says, the right to education extends to everyone within the boundaries of South Africa. The nationality and immigration status is immaterial. That's what the judgment indicated, and we are moving in that direction. And then clause 21, we have cases where it's not clear whether this child is really a dependent on the parent that has brought him or her to school. And if that clarity is not clear and it's not there, what we then do, we work along with the Department of Justice and Correctional Services and the Department of Social Development to establish that relationship between the child and the parent so that the child can be admitted into schools. These changes that we are proposing, before we took them out for public comments, we consulted 6 different partners. We consulted all units within the Department of Basic Education. Then we also consulted those decision-making structures, which is HEADCOM and the Council of Education MECs. Then we also consulted the national and provincial SGP associations. We had very productive sessions with the Department of Home Affairs and the South African Human Rights Commission. And then we also got advice from the Office of the Chief State Law Advisor. And those are the consultation processes that we went through. Once a child is admitted into a schooling system, as I've indicated, that we don't have services that are particularly targeting undocumented learners, but the services that we have provides for everybody who's inside the schooling system. Once they are inside the schooling system, there are other services that we offer them. We do feed children. There's a feeding scheme that is because some of the children came to school hungry, and you can't teach a hungry child. This issue of feeding children, I need to indicate that even during the highest level of COVID, when we're at level 3 or 4, schools still play the role of calling upon children to come and be fed at school level. But this time it was a little bit different. Children would be fed around schools where they stay. They didn't have to go to the school where they attend. And we really appreciate what our schools did. In some cases, learners and undocumented learners would be part of that, would be attending a school that's quite far from where they stay. If a child stays beyond 5 kilometers of a school and is the department that placed them at that school, scholar transport is offered. So that is the third service. The first service is education, of course, that we offer. The second one is feeding, as I've indicated. The third service is offering them scholar transport. But then because some of the schools might have challenges and some of their children might have challenges, you would know of different challenges that are there, like if, mentioning one of the examples, one of their children dies maybe in a school excursion, and this puts some pressure on children. So the schools, through the district offices and provinces, would offer psychosocial support to these children. These are services that children would get once they're admitted into a schooling system. And other services, of course, might be viewed to be minor in the eyes of other people, but to us as basic education, they are key, where we would offer leadership skills to children. They participate in RCLs, where they get leadership skills. They participate in what you call mood courts and reading programs. In mood courts, they would get an opportunity to be trained onto how to look at a matter and argue it successfully. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Mabi, I think I've given a brief of services that we do offer to children, including the migrant children. I might need to close that there is one understanding that we had, and this is the understanding that we like to highlight, that people think that migrant and undocumented children are foreigners, are not citizens. So it's not the case. We do have South African children that are still undocumented and are migrant, as Dr. Mabi indicated, for various economic opportunities within South Africa itself. So it's not a foreign learner issue, but it's about children. And that's why I say services are offered to children without discriminating against them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Takedi, for your presentation. We have noted the premise and the context where you were coming from, especially sharing with the community at large, or sharing with us the Phakamisa judgment and also, the implication thereof. Furthermore, thanks very much for also taking us through on the basket of services that the Department of Basic Education is rendering to the children that we are gathered here. We are very mindful, about the nationality, because we as social development, we are also sharing, the same sentiments to say services to children needs to be, rendered despite, the nationality or, whatever. In terms of, the abandoned and orphaned, children, we learned that those children need to be court ordered, and the court orders are the ones that are being utilized, in terms of, the admission. So thanks very much for sharing the information with us and the processes, the stages, and where you are in terms of the review of admission policy. Definitely, the Department of Basic Education is doing, something in relation to this matter. Ladies and gentlemen, I will call the second speaker, being Ms. Lillian Tobejani, who is from Department of Social Development. She will be sharing, from her presentation what the Department of Social Development is rendering towards, the children. Madam, you can come through. Let me open your presentation. Matlaka, come with yours. It's not responding. Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Mabe. Good morning to the listeners and the viewers everywhere in South Africa. I am going to quote something from an unknown author. It says, if you help a child today, you don't have to spend many years repairing an adult. I want to say that South Africa is a signatory to a number of international instruments that includes instruments such as the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child and the African Charter on the Rights of the Child. The South African Constitution also emphasizes the rights of children, and this includes migrant children. As long as a child is in the Republic of South Africa, they've got the same rights that South Africans children are also having. As a government of South Africa as well, we have operationalized issues of children by putting together a legislation called Children's Act that caters indiscriminately to all children, including migrant children. The Department of Social Development also went ahead to make things easier so that our practitioners on the ground, social workers, social service professionals, and other professionals in the field, they can understand the position of the department as well as what services are required for this group of children. DSD has ensured that the service delivery by initiating and developing policies to clarify the provision of care and protection to specifically migrant children. Now and then you find practitioners on the ground being challenged by the fact that at university level or college level, wherever they've studied, issues of migration or unaccompanied and separated migrant children do not form part of their curriculum. However, with high migration levels, they are forced to intervene even though they were not adequately trained for this. Through policy, standard operational procedures, guidelines, including capacity building to the practitioners, is provided with information on how best to address the needs of these children. The unaccompanied and separated migrant children are also recognized under the category of vulnerable groups in our policies as the Department of Social Development. With regards to services, we have to start with legislation and policy that can inform those services that we want to provide. During 2020-2021 financial year, the Department of Social Development, in conjunction with Unicef, conducted an audit of all unaccompanied and separated migrant children in alternative care, with the intention of knowing how big is the problem, who are these children, where do they come from, what are their needs and challenges, and how best can we assist these children. When we say alternative care, we're referring to a court-ordered placement that a child would have been removed from their families or from the streets, wherever they were found and they were vulnerable. They were removed by social workers and they are placed in, we used to call them children's homes. We now call them child and youth care centers. We also have foster care. We also have what we call temporary safe care, where we place children as the department. So we have conducted this audit, which I'm not going to go into details about it, but we wanted to really know and understand what are we dealing with. And I like to say that has assisted us a lot. I want to speak about collaboration. DSD alone cannot adequately address the plight of migrant children. And as such, we are part of collaborative platforms that seek to address the challenges experienced by this group of children and also to improve service delivery to them. To name but a few, there is what we call the National Steering Committee on dealing with unaccompanied and separated migrant children. So where different government departments, civil society organizations, as well as some of the child protection organizations that are designated sit on that forum on a national level. And this structure has also been duplicated in a few provinces where there was a need to do that. And the aim of this kind of structures is to... So these structures are set up with the intention of discussing challenges, but most importantly, unblocking service delivery to the said group of vulnerable children. Secondly, we also have established what we call a cross-border collaborations with the neighboring countries, such as Lesotho, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and Swaziland. I would like to understand that these are our direct neighbors, and most of the time we do have children from these respective countries, and sometimes we have children that are from South Africa that are actually even in our neighboring countries that we have to also assist. These collaborative efforts have up to so far yielded good results, which there are many cases where families in the mentioned countries were successfully traced, families were preserved when children got repatriated and reunified with their families. Through the initiative of the National Steering Committee, a document named Interdepartmental Protocol on Multidisciplinary Management of Unaccompanied and Separated Migrant Children in South Africa is being currently developed. This is to ensure that the time of sending our people from pillar to post without clearly knowing the responsibilities of our sister departments is over. So with this document, we are hoping that all government departments that are key stakeholders in this area of work would have their SOPs as well included in this document, so that when a child is found by South African police services, they know what their responsibilities are, and they know what exactly is the next department's responsibility in terms of ensuring that this child is provided with service. I also want to mention just a little bit a project that we are also currently busy with, which is a global promotion of best practices for children in migration. The unaccompanied and separated migrant children are also sometimes referred to as children on the move. So there must not be a confusion. We are referring to the same group of children. There is this project that I just mentioned that is supported by the EU and Unicef that seeks to strengthen services and programs to support children on the move. Unicef will provide more detail regarding this project later when they do their presentation. This includes learning from other countries on how they deal with migrant children so that we can become better. So we cannot just say as South Africa that we know it all, we are doing this thing, we will manage. But we have to learn from countries that are also experiencing high migration, volumes of children, or even migration of adults, so that we can become better and improve on our services. When I was introduced, Dr. Mabi said that I am working in the program international social services. I just want to bring it to the attention of everyone that is it's a program within the department, but it's also a non-government organization and a global organization that is operating with the and it's based in Switzerland, in Geneva. However, it has got a very large network of social services all over the world. So this is a program that is assisting us to facilitate. I just want to give you an example. Let's say, for example, we get a child who is from Angola in South Africa. Maybe the parents have passed, the child came with a parent and the parent passed away and there's nobody else that can look after that particular child. The first thing that we will do is to get information regarding where is this child from, who are the family members of this child in that other country. But where do we start tracing in another country? Hence, we are part of this international social services. Then we go on the website, we check if this country is a member of this international social services, and then we start to investigate the circumstances of the family through that organization. I just want to say that under international social services, we assist children, adults, and families, and to make sure that this service is provided for. In all the 9 provinces in South Africa, there are coordinators that are responsible for international social services. And like I've mentioned earlier, that we are rendering continuous capacity building to make sure that even our officials on the ground, they know what to do. I just want to talk a little bit about direct services that we offer to the unaccompanied and separated migrant children at a local level where our practitioners are. Generally, all children, when they are with their parents, guardians, caregivers, they are fine. However, when they are without that layer of protection, guidance, and supervision, any child is at risk of being abused, neglected, or even exploited. Now, imagine yourself at the age of 14, being unaccompanied, no relative of yours, nowhere, in a foreign country where you do not even speak any language or any local language in that country, not knowing anyone or any place. You went to that country with big dreams, hoping all will be well. You believed that you have escaped the West, only to find that you were wrong. You find yourself in the streets of Sunnyside with no one and nothing. You are only 14 years old. What will your wish be? Will your wish be for someone to come and save you? Will you not wish to go back to school as a child at that age? I leave you with these questions. This is the reason why children should be protected. It doesn't matter across which border. Whether children came to South Africa by themselves or got separated from their families while in South Africa is not important when it comes to child protection. A child who is vulnerable in any way, a child who has failed by their parents, by their families, or even their countries of origin, must still be protected. Remember, what we put into our children today is what we will reap as a society in a few years to come. If we expect or wish Africa to rise someday, then we must put in what we know will benefit us tomorrow. All cases are dealt with in terms of the Children's Act that I've mentioned in the beginning. Cases of child abuse, neglect, and exploitation must be reported to the nearest social workers' offices, designated child protection organizations in that area, or the Department of Social Development. And if the department is not available, say after hours, weekends and all that, then the South African Police Services is also empowered to be able to rescue children in difficult situations. Yeah, so after a social worker done their investigation, they find that a child is in need of care and protection. They have authority to remove the child and immediately place them in a place of safety, or first approach the court, depending on that social worker's assessment. So cases have to be reported, then social worker will decide as to what intervention is required for that child. Do we remove the child, or do we let the child remain in the family while we provide psychosocial services to them, while we are helping the family or the parents with parental parenting programs and many other programs that the social workers can implement within families. But the responsibility of every individual is to report. In fact, I just want to say that the responsibility of people in terms of reporting when it comes to child abuse is actually mentioned in the Children's Act, Section 110, that have listed different actors that must report when it comes to issues of child abuse. People are mentioned, the teachers, the social workers, the nurses, the immigration officials. So many people are listed there. It is a must report, and that includes migrant children. So there's no difference. All children in alternative care are fully provided for by the state, except in private child and youth care centers, which are partly funded for their services. So the services that the department provides, imagine when we say a child is admitted into a child and youth care center, we're talking about clothing, we're talking about food, we're talking about supervision of that child, we're talking about medication, we're talking about ensuring that the child goes to school and receive their medication if they've got, challenges of, they've got any medical needs. So all the needs that parents and families provide are the same services that the department provides when the children are admitted into care. And I am closing by saying that the true character of a society is judged by how it treats its children. Our children are the rock on which our future is built, and the greatest asset as a nation. That was Nelson Mandela. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lillian Tobejani, for the presentation on services that DSD, is offering or is providing, to unaccompanied and separated children. You talked about, the implementation of the Children's Act and South Africa being, part of the signatory towards the regional and international instruments, being the United Nations, protocols, and also, giving the and sharing with the panel, with the meeting policies that relate, to the programs. You also shared with the project that the Department of Social Development is or has, done in terms of profiling children who are in alternative care. And there you have mentioned, categories, of care there, being foster care, child and youth care, temporary safe care, and also, talking about the structures that are in place in terms of deliberating on the matters and blocking, service delivery in terms of services towards these children. One being the National Steering Committee on Unaccompanied and Separated Migrant Children, and also the cross-border coordinating committees, because we have memorandum of understanding with other neighboring countries, for example, Lesotho, Botswana. You also mentioned about a protocol that is in progress, which will benefit definitely the children that you are talking about, where it will be a multidisciplinary kind of nature, where each and every sector or each and every department will be knowing what mandate or what task should they be offering in terms of the children. You also shared briefly on global best practices project, and you also shared about what ISS does, that is International Social Services, which is a unit within the Department of Social Development, rendering services to South Africans who are outside the borders, and also foreigners who are in the countries. You talked about tracing, family reunification, and also talked about the direct services that we are rendering towards the children. So thanks very much for sharing the information. Definitely when we go out here, we will be in a better position to know that what social development is doing in relation to the matter. Moving forward, ladies and gentlemen, the next presenter will be who is the next presenter? The next presenter, is Helen from Unicef. She will be sharing with us, the best practices in terms of, how other, countries are faring in terms of services towards, the children. Thank you very much. The platform is yours, madam.
Distinguished participants and panelists, ladies and gentlemen, dear children and young people, good morning. First, I want to thank the Department of Social Development for the opportunity to present UNICEF's perspective, both nationally and globally, alongside such esteemed panelists, Department of Home Affairs, Department of Education and Social Development, including children and young people who at some point we will hear their experiences with us, who will share. As we've already heard today, a child somewhere in South Africa, as we sit here, has no clue where his or her family is, and also another one has no single document to prove who they are. Yet this is to mention but a little of what the children have had to bear and at their tender age to be in South Africa. What we know is that some millions of children also migrate safely for educational opportunities, employment opportunities, are also in the quest for a better life. From UNICEF worldwide, the data we have is that nearly 33 million children have been forcibly displaced by the end of 2019. This number includes some 12.6 million child refugees and approximately 1.5 million asylum-seeking children, and also another estimated 19.4 million displaced children within their own countries who are displaced because of violence and conflict. We also know that a lot more children have been displaced by natural disasters and other crises. And for instance, in 2020 alone, UNICEF recorded that additional 16,900 children were displaced as a result of calamities in each day of 2020. So you can work out what that number contributes to. A lot of these children are forced to move out. They are uprooted from their homes by violence, war, poverty, persecution, exclusion, and also the effects of climate change. In 2020, Unicef data recorded that 36 million children were living outside their country of birth. The reports are also available online. So we know that increasing number of children and youth are moving either internally or across borders. And as my previous speakers said, when we talk about children on the move, we are also including those children who are moving within South Africa and also children who are coming into South Africa. A lot of the children are moving into urban areas. And so consequently, the most vulnerable children and youth are increasingly found in the urban settings. As the situation is worsening, migrant, refugee, and internally displaced children continue to be the most marginalized children, as DSD has highlighted. While the exact numbers of migrant children are impossible to know, what we know from UNICEF's data that was released in 2019 about children in Africa alone, that Africa has the largest share of children among its migrant population. Over 1 in 4 migrants in Africa is a child. And the largest number of these child migrants that we are mentioning are estimated to be living in South Africa. South Africa is a major destination for children on the move. The high numbers of children in South Africa also include children from Eastern and Southern Africa, children migrating within the South African region, so such as Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Malawi, and also children from the Horn of Africa that move throughout the region within the Horn of Africa, with South Africa as their final destination. As we've already heard, migrant children often experience violence and exploitation on their harrowing journey to South Africa. Some arrive with parents and relatives, and sometimes once they get to South Africa, they end up being abandoned. Other children arrive unaccompanied or with strangers. Most of these children do not have documentation to prove their origin or who they actually are. So as a result of all this, in 2019, the Department of Social Development, through the European Union support, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, known as UNHCR, UNICEF, and partners, joined the global partnership to champion the rights of children on the move by launching the global promotion of best practices for children in migration in South Africa. This is a global initiative that's being implemented in 4 countries. So we have Mexico, El Salvador, Zambia, and South Africa. The project started in 2020 and will end in April 2023. So what's this project about? This project is about 2 things. We are looking to document and share lessons, promising practices, and provide lasting solutions for children on the move through a systems approach. We are also looking at gathering data and evidence to enable planning and policy developments. And as already been mentioned, some of the data that we've started gathering are the data of children that are currently in alternative care, and we are going to use that data to provide an opportunity for the children to grow and thrive through better planning. So the overall objective of this project is to protect and help realize the rights of children on the move. Specifically, these are the services that we are currently offering through the project. So first, we are providing basic services for children on the move through our engagement with civil societies. We are currently working with partners in 4 provinces. And these provinces are Western Cape, we have a partner called the Scalabrini Center of Cape Town. In Gauteng province, we have Action for Conflict Transformation. In Limpopo province, we have Future Families. KwaZulu-Natal province, we have Refugee Social Services. We're also working very closely with the provincial department there in those provinces. And through this, we are providing focused casework services to children, including family tracing and reunification. We are providing psychosocial support and mental health services. We are improving access to documentation, including those at risk of statelessness, and support with birth registration services. We're also facilitating access to education, as you already had the challenges that children have in terms of accessing education, and to some extent access to health, and also prevention of gender-based violence in those provinces. Secondly, through the project, we are working to strengthen the existing child protection system. So we are working with the department and the stakeholders to really look at how we can further strengthen the workforce that we currently have that are providing services to children on the move, and also other policies that are there, and how we really make sure that these policies are implemented and are inclusive of children on the move. The audit that already been mentioned, that registered over 700 children on the move, highlights a couple of points. That more than half of the unaccompanied and separated children that we have in South Africa are mainly from Zimbabwe and Mozambique. Most children, so 60% of the children that are in alternative care, are separated, and almost 40% of them are unaccompanied. Most unaccompanied and separated children, so we are looking at 61% here, are adolescents. So time is of the essence that we really need to provide services to them. And also 39% of those children are between 0 to 9 years old, so quite young and vulnerable. Finally, this project will ensure that the good practices that we already have in South Africa and the good practices that we already have in those 3 other countries are shared among the countries that are participating in the project, but also beyond that. So we are also looking at gathering evidence of the good practices that we have here, that we will be discussing, already discussed, and data as well that we can provide evidence, and we can also look at how we use that evidence to better our services. So overall, the program will contribute to the inclusion of children on the move in national child protection systems for continued care, welfare, and protection of children. This effort will be strengthened by capacity building of frontline staff working with children on the move. We will be improving information and case management systems. We will also be sharing lessons and ensuring knowledge exchange between the countries that are participating in this in the project. And through this, we will be facilitating South-to-South exchange and promotion of cross-border coordination within the project countries. So allow me to share some good examples globally that we have in terms of children on the move. So we know that there are local governments globally that have established a means to provide services for children even when they don't have documents. And some of these local governments, what they've done is they've developed means to protect personal information. So what we hear is sometimes parents are hesitant in seeking out, be it educational services or health services, for fear of being detected by the immigration or the law enforcement authority. So some countries have developed what we are calling firewalls, so that the information that's shared between these service providers are not necessarily used by the law or immigration authorities in situations where the parents are undocumented themselves. So these are examples that are coming from Italy. Cities like Florence and Turin have established firewalls for undocumented children, and these children are able to attend education services without the fear of their data being shared, or without the fear of being detected or being detained when they attend the services. We also have, for instance, a city in Costa Rica that's currently providing dedicated care and support to its seasonal workers, whether you're documented or undocumented. We also have good examples from Beirut, where national, local youth and the migrant youth are working together and have joint program that contributes to peace building and social cohesion activities. We also have, for instance, in the Netherlands, where support is being provided to migrant communities so that they are able to host or they are able to provide alternative care to the migrants that are coming into the country, and so the children do not necessarily end in alternative care. So in all this, what UNICEF has learned through our global work on migration and displacement is that there are 6 key things that we need to work on, regardless of which setting or country that you're working in. So these are the 6 key asks that we have. First, that we need to protect child refugees and migrants, particularly unaccompanied children, from exploitation and violence. Second is we need to seek all alternative options that we have so that we end child detention or detaining children for long periods without the necessary support. We need to keep families together as the best way we can to protect children and give children the legal status so they can access services. All refugee and migrant children, we need to continue providing access to health and access to education and other quality services that are available. We need to really look at what are the root causes of the children migrating from their home countries or even within the transit nations, so that we collectively work together to address not just the problem in destination countries or the challenges that they have, but also look at the originating countries as well. We need to work together jointly to promote measures that promote social cohesion, that combats xenophobia, discrimination, and marginalization in countries and areas of transit and destination. So as I conclude today, allow me to thank the European Union, the government of South Africa, the United Nations in South Africa, Unicef partners, UNHCR partners, and migrants and host communities for the continued support, collaboration, and partnership. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Helen, for the presentation. From the key, stakeholder, perspective in sharing with the meeting about the global, practices. We have noted, the statistics and made the meeting aware that the movements of children are not necessarily, across the borders or between borders. There are also, internal movements that we need, to take cognizance of. And we have noted that 1 in 4 of, this movement of people entails, children. So definitely, the number of children who are being displaced, is a lot in terms of the information that you have provided. During the unpleasant journey, that the children are, seeing themselves in, there are so many things that are taking place. So we need to care and protect, for such. You also shared the project on good practices, whereby it is being supported by European Union in 4 provinces, being Western Cape, Gauteng, Limpopo, and KZN. And also talked about, the audits, the number of children who we got, the figures from, emanating from the audit. Here, colleagues, we are talking about evidence-based information in terms of how can we best work and utilize the information that we are using in terms of strengthening existing system. So thanks very much from DSD side in terms of sharing, the information. We look forward, to work closely with UNICEF as our, key stakeholder. And we want definitely, the community to know that we want, to strengthen, our services, towards the children that we are talking about. Thanks very much. The next person, the next presenter, it will be Me Tebogo from Home Affairs. She will be presenting on services that Home Affairs is offering to the children in question. Thanks very much.
Good morning, colleagues, our viewers, and our panelists. All protocols observed. I'm just going to do the presentation on the mandate of the Department of Home Affairs, and I'm just going to highlight the mandate. So, from the Department of Home Affairs is the management of entry and exit and residence into or from the Republic. That is, we facilitate and regulate the secure movement of people through ports of entry and out of the Republic of South Africa. Furthermore, is management of asylum seekers and refugees, where we manage processing of asylum seekers and refugees to ensure basic services during their residence in the Republic. Thirdly, management of the integration process for international migrants. That is the establishment of a secure, strategic, and integrated approach for the integration of migrants into communities through consultation with relevant organs such as the UNHCR. Management of enforcement, which we envisage for the reduction of irregular migration and enforcement of compliance with the immigration and related regulations. And I'm just going to highlight the children's rights and the services that the Department of Home Affairs is rendering. Just to bring to your attention that the Department of Home Affairs is guided by the Constitution of the South Africa, which gives priority to Children's Act, thus to ensure that the best interest of all children under the age of 18-year-old, that overriding concern when it comes to any matter affecting the children. And amongst those rights, the children have the right to name, nationality from birth. That is where the Department of Home Affairs ensure the issuance of necessary documents to migrant children in order to legalize their stay in the Republic in adherence to Department of Social Development request and the court order. They have the right to be protected from exploitation, neglect, abuse, and dreadful condition, where we play a role to ensure that compulsory reporting on knowledge or where there are suspicion of child to be a victim of trafficking. So in this case, if a child is detected, such a child should immediately be referred to a designated social worker or the South African Police Services. The right to family care, love, and protection, that is to ensure the Department of Home Affairs mandate, we ensure that there is a smooth facilitation during the repatriation upon considering the report from Department of Social Development regarding the safety to return the child victim of trafficking to country of origin for integration with the family members. The children are to be protected from exploitative labor practices which prohibit them to perform work inappropriate to a person underage. So the Department of Home Affairs has the mandate to participate in joint stakeholder operations where joint business inspections are conducted for compliance with employment requirements in curbing any work that is unsuitable to the child that will have a negative impact on their social, mental, physical, or emotional development. So in that case, we approach companies unannounced because we can go there without an entry or a search warrant. We do the inspections, then we will be in the company of Department of Labor and the police, and then where the children are found, and then social development will also take part on that one. The right not to be detained, but to be treated in condition that accounts of the child's age. Here, at any child or an unaccompanied child, regardless of their status, when are detected, we refer them to a designated shelter through the Department of Social Development. So in closing, I just want to highlight that we need to differentiate between unaccompanied children and smuggled children, because we have a lot of cases where we have smuggled children. So there is a difference between the two, because smuggled children are not unaccompanied. Those are the children that are sent to come to South Africa to join their families that are already in South Africa, who are here illegally. There are arrangements that are made with the facilitators to bring those children in here. So when such children are detected, as I indicated, that at no stage that the Department of Home Affairs detained children regardless of their status. We work closely with Department of Social Development, where we only detain an adult, and the children will refer them to social development. And during that administration process for deportation, the children will be with their mothers, will be housed at the shelter with the Department of Social Development, and we will do a family deportation upon finalization. So that is to bring to the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Tebogo, in terms of your presentation, highlighting the mandate of Department of Home Affairs in terms of, the target group that we are talking about. You mentioned, as one of the mandate being, regulating movements, of people. Secondly, management of refugee and asylum seekers. And also talking about, integration, of asylum seekers and refugees into the communities. You also talked about, similar sentiments that we are sharing as government departments in terms of the right to family care. And also talking about, how repatriation, should be conducted when dealing, with children. You also talked about, stakeholder operations, whereby Department of Home Affairs do inspections in collaboration with South African Police Services and Department of Labor in terms of inspecting, working environments and checking as to whether they know, children who are working there. You also talked about, the principle of not detaining, children. Rather, alternatives need to be made when children, are being detected, so that they shouldn't be, detained, in detention. Clear differentiation was also sourced in terms of smuggling and the issue of unaccompanied minors, because you talked about, in terms of smuggling, there is, a facilitation that have been, made with the facilitator, arrangements being made, and people need to be aware, of the separation and the difference between the two. And talked about deportation and also repatriation. With adults, when people are being sent to their country, we are saying they are being deported. But in terms of children, we are repatriating them back into their country of origin, whereby we usually ensure the safe return of children, the safe receipt, of children in those respective countries, and also require some follow-ups in terms of how children have adjusted when they are being, received, on the other side. So thanks very much, for the presentation. And as you know, we highly, work closely with you, and especially in terms of repatriation, of children. So thanks very much, for the presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, the next presentation will be by Save the Children, whereby Mr. Nyika will be, coming and sharing with the meeting, about the plight or the services that are being, offered, to the target group that you are talking about. Thank you very much. Sir, you may approach the podium.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much, Dr. Mabe. And we would like to express gratitude for the invite and for participating in this panel and engagement commemorating the Social Workers' Day for 2021, Social Workers' Month, if I may say. And it's one of those careers that hardly commemorated. I'm grateful that we do have this time that we can look at the work that is done. My name is Nyika Machenjedze, as shared by the chair from Save the Children South Africa. I'm the Migration and Displacement Thematic Manager, and I will make a presentation on the plight of migrant children and the services and interventions that Save the Children focuses on. A quick introduction on Save the Children for those that may not have interacted with Save the Children before. That Save the Children is a child rights organization whose strength is mainly on its honor for meaningful participation of children. And we strongly believe that no child must be left behind. Every child must be protected, learn, and have a voice. And we use partnership and collaboration as a model of our intervention in many of our work to ensure results at scale. And children are being displaced across the globe. I think my colleague from Unicef has really shared this and painted the picture for us. And I may just add to what she said that if migrants were to be made a country, they will be the biggest country in the world. And majority of those, over 55%, will be children. And we call as Save the Children to all states and partners to really try and give life to the Global Compact on Orderly Migration, as it emphasizes the protection of children in migration status context, I mean. I'm going to share a bit in terms of our view to the South African response to migrant children in the country. That South Africa's service to migrant children is based on its principles of the law, and that the law in South Africa is developed on the basis of human rights. And protecting migrant children is not because we have good hearts. It's because we honor the law. And that's what the law demands. And it is the right thing to do other than that. And I would like to share the global principles of caring for unaccompanied and separated migrant children that Save the Children and key stakeholders globally have put together. And these are about 7 principles that have found life through our policies and guidelines that I would like to emphasize that DSD has developed. First principle is that migrant and displaced children are children first. So that's the first principle, that we look at these children as children first before we look at them as migrants. And they have a right to life, survival, and development while in their migratory context. They also have a right to movement. There is no child detention as a matter of principle. And I'm glad that our colleague from Home Affairs emphasized non-detention of children. And as Save the Children would like to extend it to non-detention of children even in the company of their parents. Because detention is detention, whether you are detained with your mother or you are detained alone. So we would like to extend to look into mechanisms. That's why DSD provides alternative care for children so that they don't face detention. And inclusive child protection system is another principle, that our child protection system must be inclusive. And this is what we have seen as good strides in South Africa regarding the guidelines for the care and protection of migrant children that integrates them in the national child care system. It's not good to have a system that takes care of migrant children and a system that takes care of other children. So the integration is highly commended by Save the Children. And human rights in migration is another principle. And the last principle I would like to share is child participation. That child participation should be meaningful and should always be regarded as a prime important component of child protection. Save the Children's strategy for the next 4 or 5 years emphasize the following around its migration and displacement work. The focus, the goal is to ensure the well-being of children that are affected by migration and displacement through evidence-based programming. In other words, we want to use what research says in terms of development of our programming. And I would mention a few research that have been conducted by Save the Children in the recent past. One is the Girls on the Move in the Southern Africa and Global study that looked at migrant girls and the plights of girls in migration. And it has elevated a lot of struggles that girls face in migration. And we have developed programs that respond to that. And another one is the Skills Development Study, which is really looked at improving the transitioning of children. We have a very good system of putting children into alternative care. But when a child is unaccompanied, when they reach 18 and the system cannot accommodate them further, what happens to them? And this is what the study looks at and gives alternatives. And I would like to share briefly the new initiative that is currently being developed between Save the Children and Department of Home Affairs Research Unit, and looking at the review of the documentation system of migrant and displaced children in the country. And Home Affairs and Save the Children will be bringing this to the attention of the National Steering Committee for a collaborative commissioning. Some of the key interventions that Save the Children participate in or work on in terms of protection of migrant children in collaboration with a number of other partners is capacity building of duty bearers. This, we realize that for children to receive quality of care, those who provide the care must be capacitated well to know how and what to do. And this is one of the key interventions. And another critical intervention that everybody has mentioned as applied to migrant children, that they struggle with language when they get to a new country. We provide a service called the Cultural Mediation Intervention. In this, we provide trained care workers who can interface with caregivers, with social workers, with duty bearers. It doesn't matter which profession or which department can utilize the cultural mediators who are able to bridge the gap between the child and the service provider. And I would like to say, in Save the Children, currently, these are the languages in the countries we have represented. It's the Portuguese, which covers Mozambique and Angola. We have Swahili-speaking cultural mediators, which covers DRC, Tanzania, and many other West Africa countries. We also have Lingala from DRC and Burundi. And we also have Shona-speaking cultural mediators that are predominantly Zimbabwe, Ndebele, which is predominantly Zimbabwe as well, and we have Ndau, which is Zimbabwe and Mozambique. We also provide cultural mediation service for Chewa, which is predominantly Malawi, and Chitsonga as well, which is predominantly Mozambique and part of Zimbabwe. Child participation, as I mentioned, we also ensure that migrant children participate in policy spaces such as child parliament spaces, Girls on the Move, and supporting of migrant young mothers who it has been mentioned that some of them face exploitation and abuse, and many of them, the statistics of teenage pregnancy have been shared in South Africa recently, and it was shocking to many. But to note that they are migrant children, unaccompanied part of that statistic, and they also are in that situation, and we have programs that respond to the needs of young migrant mothers. And we also conduct community dialogues to try and respond to the xenophobic and integration efforts in the communities, and supporting our government, particularly when it comes to family tracing and repatriation of children to the neighboring countries, both by providing transportation, accompaniment, and other support services, including COVID test of the repatriated children, and also supporting the case management system through the best interest determination committees in different provinces, specifically focusing on unaccompanied and separated children cases that are outside of the mandate of the UNHCR that also runs this, and also providing services to migrant children in emergency setting, such as provision of food aid. And in conclusion, I'm going to quickly share the key milestones that Save the Children would like to acknowledge the South African government and stakeholders and partners to have accomplished towards the service of migrant children. One, it is the provision of stakeholder coordination forums. I think Lillian has mentioned these in her work. These, we are looking at provincial steering committees, national steering, cross-border mechanisms, and all this has really improved the care of migrant children, including the development of SOPs with neighboring countries, and of course the implementation of best interest determination panels to support caseworkers with complex cases. And of course, recognition of unaccompanied and separated children, that before they are migrants, they are children. And the inclusion in the currently tabled Children's Act amendment to include specifically unaccompanied and separated children. And of course, the non-systematic detention of children is acknowledged, that South Africa is one of those countries that is being acknowledged, the countries that don't practice child detention, although you still get isolated cases of ill practice. A quick overview of the cracks that Save the Children would like to highlight as the last part of my presentation that still needed to focus on and improve is to look at the isolated detention cases and arrest of children so that they are totally eliminated. And the use of detention centers to house children, and the need for a systematic provision of mental health and psychosocial support. I think this is one of the key elements, particularly for children coming from a war-torn countries. And of course, effective system for supporting children throughout the asylum seeking process for unaccompanied children who are seeking asylum protection. And of course, inclusion in all manner and form for children. I think this would be the end of my presentation, Mr. Chair. I tend to talk a bit long always. I apologize for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation by you, Save the Children, Nika. You shared with us, so many things that we have noted, giving background and, the mandate of Save the Children being a child's rights organization, whereby you value, the rights and participation, of children, and also the collaboration thereof. You also, shared with us the view of Save the Children and reflected, on how the government, is doing and appreciating, the government, of South Africa in terms of honoring the law by caring and protecting the children. You also mentioned, the 7 principles. Amongst them, I want to talk to them, whereby we needed, to look at the child first, and also includes the child protection system need to be an inclusive one, being, inclusive of, both nationals and also, of foreigners. You talked about, the strategy that you are looking at, and also the initiatives that you have done in terms of dealing with language barriers, whereby you are using cultural mediation in terms of the languages, that you have, talked about. And I must say, definitely, language is a barrier in terms of communication, but you have put measures in place in terms of, assisting in that regard. You also talked about the milestones, what the government, has accomplished in terms of stakeholder collaboration, and also talking about what need to be strengthened and improved. Amongst them, the arrest and detention, and also, the provision of mental health and psychosocial, support to the children. So, ladies and gentlemen, those are the presentation by the panelists. Now we are coming, to hear the voice of the children. I must say we needed, to have the children themselves here presenting to the media or, to the meeting. But unfortunately, we didn't want to interrupt, their schooling, because as we speak, they are in class. So we have requested them, to write through, to write their experiences, their challenges, their journey. And the center manager here being Sam from Kids Heaven in Benoni, is going to come through and share, those experiences that that are being, shared by the children themselves. We are mindful about child participation. That is why we wanted, to engage with children. So, Sam, the stage is yours. Come and share what the children, have provided you.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Social Development, and thank you, members of the panel, and all for allowing us the opportunity just to share the voices of the young people in care. I basically come from a CYCC named Kids Haven, which is actually in Benoni, and I'm just gonna share with you, the voices of the young people coming from there. And I'm not going to use their, original names in particular. The first letter just reads, "Hello there. I moved in South Africa in 2009 because of the conflict in our country. Our journey began in 2006, moving from Kinshasa to Lubumbashi, where my mother's sister opened a restaurant and we lived with them for a while. We moved from Lubumbashi, then we crossed many borders until we reached South Africa. We were staying with my uncle, but when time went by, we moved to our own space. Things were not easy since my mother could not find a job, but eventually she got one. Then the Department of Home Affairs issued us with an asylum seeker's permit. Then in 2013, my mother died. We, including me and my younger sister, were removed by social workers to be placed at Kids Haven. We continued school until I passed my matric with a bachelor entry to university, but the challenge is that I'm unable to renew my asylum seeking permit. I would like to further my studies. I would like to extend many thanks to everyone who is advocating for us to be documented and take the next step in life. I thank you. Rose, a female, 20 years. The second letter reads this way. Hello there. My journey in South Africa has been good so far. Thanks to the love, shelter, and educational support I and my two younger sisters get from Kids Haven. I'm currently in grade 12 and live in Benoni inner city near the center. I've been supported by Kids Haven through community outreach program for about 9 years now. I originate from DRC. I came here to South Africa at the age of 3. I'm currently 20 years. I arrived in South Africa with my mother and uncle. We have been suffering back home because of the conflicts and civil wars that were happening. Many of our family members were killed. When we got here in South Africa, we stayed in a small room where we barely had food to eat. We were about to be dished out of that room because we didn't have funds to pay rent. A good Samaritan contacted social workers at Kids Haven who came to check on us, and they came to our rescue where they helped us in terms of getting food and supporting me to continue studying. I would like to thank the government of South Africa for granting us a refugee status in the country. Hence now I can pursue my dream of becoming a professional boxer and also doing plumbing on the side. Thank you very much for finding me, for finding time to read my letter. Kasongo, a male, 20 years. The next letter reads this way. Hello there. I am a Ugandan, 19 years old, who came to South Africa when I was 16 years. I came to South Africa on the basis to attain my education and become someone important in life. I want to be a chartered accountant, and I strongly believe that I will achieve it if I am supported to get legal documents. My journey to South Africa was in February 2018, and it was not an easy adventure. I came by a bus with my elder brother, who was 25 years by then. We crossed the borders of Tanzania, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and in Zimbabwe, my brother was captured by the police. I got lucky that day because I was not with him. I had to cross via Zimbabwe River, which I came to know as Limpopo River. I was lost and worried about how my life was going to be in the area that I don't know anyone. So I decided to keep going without my brother, and I didn't have any document. I ended up in Pretoria, where I slept in the streets. Then I met someone that I told my story. Then he advised me to go and report myself to the Department of Social Development. I miss my family and my home country. In my family, we are 7 children, 2 boys and 5 daughters, different fathers. Because my brother was the breadwinner, he had decided to take me to South Africa so we could uplift our whole family out of poverty. I was convinced and followed him. I thank Kids Haven for supporting me through my education and providing a home to me. I'm now doing grade 12. I promise to bring distinctions at the end of the year. The challenge, I'm still undocumented. Joseph, male, 19 years. If I could just, say one thing about this last letter, it's this young man he He's an A student. I have never seen, such an intelligent young man. Extremely intelligent. You don't even doubt the A student the A that is saying is going to produce here. I have no doubt he's going to produce those, Thank you so much. And I'm not sure.
Okay. Thanks very much, Sam. Those were the messages from the three, children that are being accommodated there by Kids Heaven, being a child and youth care center in Benoni. You have heard their story. Two are from DRC, one is from Uganda. And the last one, has assured us, of bringing so many distinctions, on board, because according to the center manager, he's a hard worker. We would have loved, the kids to have been here, but because of the circumstances, they wrote, those messages. And the last thing that I want to talk about, in our midst here, we also have one person who benefited, who is no longer a child any longer, but who benefited, from the program, received, services that have been, provided by K7. He's here, and he would like, to share, a bit, of what his journey has been through. So, John, can I call you quickly come through and share the journey? And let us know how old were you when you come here? What are you doing? So come and share, your experiences with us. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for inviting me to share my story. Yes, my name is John Pamene Twishime, and I was born in Rwanda. So I left Rwanda in 1994. So I was 4 years by then. We moved through different countries, namely Tanzania, Malawi. So through Tanzania and Malawi, I've been staying in refugee camps. So it's where I got to go to school in 2 refugee camps. Then I came to South Africa. I was 17 years old. That's 2008. But it was that time of xenophobia. So when I arrived, just to cut the story short, I was taken by social workers, so they interviewed me and I gave them my story. So then that's how I ended up at the Kids Heaven. So when I reached at Kids Heaven, they did ask me, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to do? So I wanted it to continue school, so maybe I can be into medical or something else that I can make myself a better person. From there, I got opportunity. I can call it a bursary to study youth development. Then I took it from there. Then I did diploma in youth development at Unicef. But also for the work of the outside social worker who advocated for me to get an asylum seeker. Then I got refugee status from Department of Home Affairs. Thank you, Department of Home Affairs. So I'm documented with a refugee status, and I'm proud to call myself a graduate of Kids Heaven through their services and being kind to me. And yes, I'm employed, fully employed at Kids Heaven. I'm working with young people who left care, plus also those that are undocumented and also separated, but went through Kids Heaven. So I thank you very much for giving me this opportunity just to tell my story. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John, for sharing the experiences, with us, and for being brave, of coming and, narrating as, pertaining to your journey from where you are coming from. And we would like, to thank also the K7, management in terms of the services that they have provided, to you. They have built you, they have molded you. You are, what you are, currently because of the services there. And I'm happy that you are with them, and you are also developing, other people. So, it's a reciprocal, kind of thing. You are also, plowing back, to the community. And thanks very much, to Home Affairs, as you rightfully say. You are now, afforded, the refugee, status. So you are fully, documented. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of, the panelists, presentations, and also heard the voices of children, and also, a testimony of someone who benefited, from the services that Kids Heaven, has provided. So I am opening, for a few minutes for comments and questions, if at all they are, so that, we can engage and take it from there. So I'm opening it, for discussion from the meeting. Engage with the panelists if you have questions, comments, interrogations, if at all, there are things that you are not clear, so that, we can move forward with our program. Any hand goes, it goes, no one? So I think the panelists' presentations were clear and straightforward and well understood. And the testimonies that we got also from the children themselves, expressing them in writing, we think that, the testimonies, are, straightforward in terms of the services, towards them. And there is a hand there. Yes, madam? Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you very much, Dr. Mabe.
Thank you.
We're getting a lot of media inquiries to have the various presentations. If those can be shared with us, please. We've got a lot of media coverage at the moment. Thank you very much.
Okay. Definitely, you are, rest assured, you will get, they have sent that to me, and then I will share that with you, so that, you can deal with that.
Yes, thank you, Doc. I appreciate that. Can you also have the letters that were read out by Kids Haven?
Oh, okay. Thanks very much. Any other? Any hand? So thanks very much. In the absence of any, I think this was very, beneficial and straightforward. And I must say, personally, I'm thanking you from the bottom of my heart, as panelists, to say, firstly, thanks very much for accepting the invitation. It is very, it is a very busy, and it was short notice, I must say, to you. But you jumped high to grab, the opportunity. And let's, continuously, engage and collaborate, with each other as we have been. But I want, personally to thank, every one of you. Your contributions definitely will be reflected, in, at the outcome, of this. But I wanted, to share this, to say thanks very much for everyone, who shared the presentation, and we will take it from there. In the absence of any, I would like then perhaps, to adjourn the meeting.